you want to set up for a Scarewalk in a relaxed but high ollie position. The back foot's the most crucial thing here. You want to make sure it's nice and central in the tail. Don't have it too much off to one side or it will start flipping before you can grab it. The front foot positioning, however, is a bit less crucial and a little bit more up for debate. I've spent too long thinking about this in the run-up to doing this trick tip, and ultimately the only thing I can settle on is it's a trade-off. You've got to experiment a little bit and see what works for you based on your own body type, your technique, and your deck. Now, the general rule of thumb is the further forward you are, say right over this truck, the faster your foot will get out past the end of the nose, but the slower it will be to pop, and it won't pop as vertical, which means it'll be harder to grab. Now, if you come to the other extreme and you come all the way down here like an absolute maniac, it'll pop really quick, it'll pop really vertical, but good luck getting your foot from here up, over and out past the end of the nose. So you've got to sit and tweak it based on what's going wrong in the trick. If it's not getting vertical enough, bring your front foot further back. If you find yourself snagging the nose and knocking the board into a flip, bring your foot further up. I tend to find kind of aiming for this point just slightly forward of the midway line, that seems to work for me. But if I'm having a particularly lazy day or whatever, I will have to tweak this as I go to get it right. Actually, I'll be honest, that last point about lazy days, it's a lie. If I'm feeling lazy, I don't even do Scarewalks. They're not a hard trick, but they do require a lot of power. If you've got tired legs, achy legs, just feeling lazy, you just want to do footwork, maybe you're not good at jumping, maybe you don't have a particularly strong pop, just box this up, put it on the shelf, forget about it, come back to it later. This is not something you can half-arse. You've got to go into this with energy and commitment, or it's just going to look bad. Oh, it's not something you want to do when you're hungover, is what I'm saying. And now, fully aware of the hypocrisy of this, I'm going to be lazy to illustrate the technique and sit down. And the reason is because this is actually quite hard to illustrate standing up, and I don't want to put myself at risk. Because this isn't just a little tickle, it isn't that, it is a full-on stomp downwards. You want to hit the tail down so hard that the board rockets upwards, ready for you to grab. And in case you hadn't realised, in case you hadn't twigged, that's why this is called the Scarewalk, because as it rockets upwards, it could end really badly. And that's part of the reason why I was saying you want to make sure that foot is completely central on the tail. Aim to have the ball of the foot here, the ball of the big toe, right in the centre of the tail. Because if it's off to one side or the other, or if your foot's slightly angled, instead of getting a nice straight pop, things like, oh God, woo, things like that will happen. And that's why I'm sat down. You have to be very forceful, but you have to make sure it is literally just coming straight. Even that was slightly crooked. There we go, that's what we want. Just do that over and over again until it's not flipping, it's not spinning, and you feel comfortable about that pop. And then we can deal with this bloody thing. See, if you've done any ollie tricks at all up to this point, whether it's straight ollies, 180s, flips, whatever, this front foot is going to be a liability. Because what you have to do with this foot on a Scarewalk is start here, lift straight up, knee to the chest, straight upwards, and then kick out as hard as you can. And most people nowadays, they get on a board for the first time and all they want to do is ollie. So they go pop, slide, pop, slide, pop, slide, pop, slide, ollie, yeah. And you train yourself to do that over and over again without thinking. So I show this to street skaters who've spent years just doing that motion. And I go, look, lift up, kick out. Lift up, kick out. And they kind of skip that middle bit and they go lift up, kick out. And they will do that over and over and over again. You have to completely disconnect from the grip tape. Straight up and then straight out. And also try not to spear yourself while demonstrating things. Oh God, don't like that. But that's what you're doing. Up and out. Even if you manage to train yourself out of just the straight ollie drag, you know, you start going up and out, up and out. If you've done a lot of ollie flips, you may have a tendency now to, instead of going straight up and out, to try and sneak out the side. And I've seen people try and do this intentionally with Scarewalks. They think, well, I need to get out of the way of this board, so I'll pull my front foot out here. And as you can imagine, if you're trying to rocket the board upwards on purpose, and you're trying to escape out the side, what's going to happen? You're going to end up doing the worst ollie kickflip you've ever seen. Oh. It's weird trying to intentionally rocket those. That's awful. But that's the problem. Coming out this way is not going to work. Again, I cannot say this enough. Straight up, straight out. Kung Fu kick, that's the goal. Up, out, done. One thing that I find really helps explain this to street skaters is actually, weirdly, pop shove-its. Because if you can do good pop shove-its, you know, getting airborne, not just scuttering across the floor, not a worm-burning push it here, properly popped, you should already be doing the first part of this front foot motion. Just lifting the foot straight up. Obviously, you've not got the karate kick going on, but you've got the takeoff, right? Because obviously, as any street skater knows, if you think about doing a pop shove, but you flick your foot out either side, you end up with shove flip, shove heel. Or if you want to be completely wrong about it, varial flip and varial heel. So getting used to that straight up bit, that's the biggest battle won. Don't worry about this bit so much right now, but getting that right is everything. Inevitably, once you've got the front foot motion right, you know, you're not sliding up or out or flicking it or whatever the hell, this is now straight up and out, the next problem is going to be keeping the board straight, because when you don't have the front foot to control it, all sorts of shenanigans can happen. And this is where that pop shove it analogy kind of falls apart, because any back foot motion at all other than straight down is going to ruin this. We need to pop in a straight line so the board comes straight up. Now, if you imagine I'm rolling towards you, that's what I want to see. Graphic pointing that way. If you start scooping, it starts going crooked, you're going to catch it wrong. Worst case scenario, it'll end up going over that way. That was a bit extreme. Make sure it's straight down and straight up. And I guess we better talk about this bit. To talk about the backhand, we'll need to talk mainly about style. See, all that backhand is going to do is push the board back down effectively. And when I first learned it, that's what I was doing. Because the guys in the 80s, I think Pierre-Andre used to do these maybe, some bloke called Rodney Mullen, he used to do them. You'd see these guys and they'd palm it. They'd put their hand in the way and just palm the nose and push it down. So that's what I learned. And it's easier, I'll give you that, but it's also worse in every way. It doesn't look as good, but you don't have as much control and finesse over it. So instead, what I started doing, keep my fingers together and let the board come up to here with my thumb out the way. Lap the thumb over and grip the skid plate. Yet another good reason to use these. Now with that, I've got a solid grip. What that means is, one, I can course correct. If the board hasn't popped straight, if it started to flip, if it started to go awry, I can grab it and I can get it back in line. Two is that I can also pull upright. If I've not popped particularly strongly, if the board's flat, when I was still palming it, the angle it reached is the angle it was at. It's never getting better than that if you're pushing from here. If you lap that thumb under and you grip it, if it's gone slightly too flat, you can pull up. You're going to need energy and height to do so, but honestly, you can rein in some bad Scarewalks that way and make them look good. But then also the third point, once you start grabbing properly, you can turn this into a finger flip. But that's really bloody hard, so I'm not dealing with that right now. That is for a much, much later trick tip. Just know it's possible. This is exactly the sort of thing I talk about all the time. If you learn something right first time round, it opens up a lot more options later on. So, resist the palm, go for the grab. Trust me on that. Something else to consider with a backhand is mostly a stylistic one, and that's try and avoid doing this. Now that was bad for so many reasons, not least of which, that wasn't rolling fast enough. We'll deal with that in a second. But this is how I learned them, because it seems like an obvious thing to do. You're going to want the board to come up between your legs, so you want to protect certain things. Having that hand there to begin with seems like the smart move. It isn't. Not only does it look bad, I mean, this is a terrible position to be in, but it actually kind of hampers your movement. Bear in mind, you're going to have to jump quite high. So you've got to flex at the knees, you've got to get ready for a nice springy jump, and if that hand is there, everything's tied up. It's not comfortable. So instead, stay loose. Look like you're just setting up for an ollie. Keep this hand here. Obviously, don't position it weirdly, like still have the palm that way, but relax, get ready for the pop, and as you pop, bring the hand in to catch. It should be one smooth movement. Now, not only does that mean you can jump a bit easier, but I think also it gives you a little bit more fluidity in the whole motion. And really, smoothness is the key here. This isn't a flip trick, okay? We're not just trying to land something, we're trying to make something look good. This actually should have the same mentality as a wheelie or a G-turn or a piece of footwork. The goal is to do something fluidly and make it look beautiful, not just to put your feet on the grip tape at the end. As such, doing this stationary, what I was kind of alluding to a second ago, doesn't work. I mean, well, it does, you can land one, but it will never look good. Ugh. Now, I barely got my fingers on that, didn't really get much of a grab, but there's just no flow. There's no beauty to that. It's just a bit pointless. Roll. Roll, give it a bit of pace, it will look better, I promise. One last stylistic note, and this is obviously not something for the beginners, like don't worry about this at first, but try to avoid doing this. I can't even do a Scarewalk like that now. Most people when they get started, including myself, they do this. They just keep the foot balled up here. Now, this obviously makes it easier to land because you don't have to extend as much, but it looks terrible. I keep saying, lift up, kick out. If you're not doing this part, is it really a Scarewalk? I mean, yeah, I don't know, but I would say not. It's certainly not a good one. Lift up, kick out. Don't ball up in midair because, oh God, it's horrible. I'll be honest, I almost forgot to mention how to end the trick because to me, the ending seems obvious, right? You've got your form right, you've got your technique right, the pop is good, everything's coming straight, solid grab, good straight kick, trick's over. No, you've actually got to roll away from it. It's the simplest thing in the world. As long as you've got a solid grab here, all you've got to do is push that forward and bring this foot back in and land, right? The biggest two hurdles there are how far do you push forward before you let go? I know I've done somewhere basically I've got to that point as I'm putting my front foot on and I've got tangled up in what is effectively the world's worst cradle grab. Let go before that, just kind of release. And the other thing is getting this foot back in and keeping yourself balanced. Now, again, not something I've thought about for a while, but I found out to my cost that, you know, if you're trying to focus on kicking that, there might be a tendency to lean back. And if you are, and you don't correct for that, when you get back on the board's going to shoot out and you're going to end up down there. Oh! Ow! That's not something you really want to be doing, especially not on a floor as rough as this. So that's the Scarewalk. Not as some people think, an airwalk with the legs kicked the wrong way, but you know, its own and weird little trick. And I don't know why more people don't do this. I mean, maybe it's because of the name and the whole like concern for the family jewels, but honestly, in all the years I've done this, I think maybe I've sacked myself once, which is arguably once too many, but you know, it's not that risky, is what I'm saying. You have ways of getting around it. Your hand's there, you can literally just throw the board away, or if your hand's not there, you can use the side of your back foot and kind of do like a mid-air no comply, level the board back out. That's how Ron Allen used to do his 1-foots, incidentally. But yeah, it's enjoyable, it's quick, it's snappy, and done well. I think it looks pretty good. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've seen some terrible Scarewalks. I've done some terrible Scarewalks, but you know, if you follow the rules laid out here, I think they're a decent trick. Before you start going off in the comments, yeah, I know, there's no rules in skateboarding, but yeah, you can do things well and you can do things badly. And I'd like to think if you're watching a video on how to do a trick, you want to know how to do it well, right? That shouldn't be controversial. Let's not do ugly Scarewalks. Let's make them decent. Otherwise, why bother? Ugh. Just left a bad taste in my mouth now. Ugh. Just go away, Jesus. Oh, forgot why I stopped doing these. Bloody hell, that hurt.